AMD stock had a strong session on Wednesday, November 5th, climbing 3.3% to close at around $258.29 per share. It was a powerful rebound after several choppy sessions earlier in the week, as both the broader market and tech sector bounced back. But beneath the surface, today's strength in AMD goes beyond just a technical recovery. It's the result of strong quarterly results, renewed investor confidence in the company's data center and AI roadmap, and some promising headlines that point to the company's expanding role in the artificial intelligence ecosystem. Let's start with what's been driving the rally. AMD's third-quarter results came in stronger than expected, easily topping Wall Street forecasts. The company reported revenue of around $9.2 billion, which represented roughly 36% year-over-year growth. Margins came in solid too, with gross margin around 52% and non-GAAP margins even higher at 54%. The market's initial reaction was mixed. Investors were cautious about the company's fourth-quarter guidance at first, but as traders dug deeper into the details, confidence returned. The guidance range for Q4 revenue between $9.3 billion and $9.9 billion actually sits above the midpoint of analyst expectations, signaling continued momentum into year-end. The real story here, though, lies within AMD's data center segment. This division, which includes products like EPYC server CPUs and Instinct AI accelerators, saw a 22% increase in revenue. That's critical because this is the part of the business most directly tied to artificial intelligence infrastructure. Investors and analysts have been closely watching AMD's ability to compete with Nvidia and Intel in this fast-growing market, and this quarter's data center performance was the kind of result many were hoping for. AMD's CEO Lisa Su emphasized during the earnings call that the company's AI strategy is maturing quickly. The Instinct MI300 series, which powers large-scale AI training and inference workloads, is ramping faster than expected. Su pointed to strong customer demand from cloud providers and enterprise partners who are diversifying beyond Nvidia's ecosystem. AMD is positioning itself not just as a GPU alternative, but as a full-stack AI compute solution, offering CPUs, GPUs, and now custom NPUs all under one umbrella. Beyond the numbers, today's rally was helped by a shift in overall sentiment. The broader stock market recovered from a sell-off earlier in the week as investors reacted positively to an upbeat U.S. jobs report, which suggested the economy remains resilient without forcing the Federal Reserve to reconsider rate cuts. That combination of stability and easing inflation expectations gave risk assets, especially tech and AI names, a much-needed boost. AMD, being one of the bellwether names in the semiconductor space, naturally benefited from that rebound. But perhaps the biggest single catalyst lifting the mood today was fresh news that AMD has struck a partnership deal with OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. According to reports from Barron's, Investors Business Daily, and the Associated Press, AMD will be providing AI chips and infrastructure to support OpenAI's ongoing expansion of its cloud-based compute environment. While details of the deal haven't been fully disclosed, it's being interpreted as a major win for AMD's credibility in the AI hardware market. OpenAI has traditionally been tied closely to Nvidia's H100A100 GPUs, so any diversification toward AMD chips suggests growing confidence in their performance and scalability. This OpenAI deal adds a new layer to AMD's story. It's no longer just about keeping up with Nvidia, it's about carving out a legitimate second option for large AI players who want redundancy, competitive pricing, or unique features in their compute stack. That's why you're seeing investor enthusiasm surge today. It's not simply a short-term bounce, it's renewed faith that AMD can participate meaningfully in the next phase of AI infrastructure build-out. Still, not everyone is convinced the road ahead will be smooth. Some analysts have pointed out that while AMD's numbers were strong, expectations were already very high going into earnings. In fact, in the immediate aftermath of the report, shares initially dipped slightly before regaining momentum. The reason was that the market wanted even more evidence of acceleration, particularly in the AI segment. Some commentary framed it as good, but not blowout enough to justify AMD's lofty valuation, which currently trades at over 40 times forward earnings. Others have raised concerns about competition from Nvidia, which continues to dominate the AI GPU space, and from Intel, which has been rebuilding its server chip business. There's also the geopolitical factor. With ongoing restrictions on advanced chip exports to China, investors worry about how much of AMD's addressable market could be affected by government regulation. That's a real wild card that could add volatility to the stock. But despite those caveats, the market reaction today suggests investors are willing to give AMD the benefit of the doubt. After digesting the data, traders appear to be viewing AMD as a company that's executing well, expanding in the right areas, and proving it can compete at the highest level of the semiconductor industry. And importantly, it's doing so in a macro environment that's becoming more favorable for tech again. So the big question now becomes, where does AMD go from here? Let's look forward. In the short term, investors will be watching for analyst updates and price target revisions in the days ahead. When a major chipmaker beats earnings and announces a high-profile partnership like this, analysts tend to revisit their assumptions on growth, margin expansion, and market share. If those revisions come in bullish, it could help sustain the stock's momentum through the rest of the week. Beyond that, the next 1 to 3 months will be about confirming that AMD's AI business truly has durable legs. Investors will want to see tangible evidence of customer adoption for the MI300 series and how quickly the company can scale manufacturing. The pace of production and shipment in the data center division will be key indicators. If AMD shows consistent quarter-to-quarter improvement in this segment, it could reinforce the narrative that AMD isn't just part of the AI boom, it's a structural player within it. Another factor to watch is product cadence. AMD has been accelerating its release schedule for new CPUs and GPUs, moving from a roughly 2-year cadence to something closer to 18 months. That faster rhythm could give it a competitive edge, especially if Nvidia experiences delays in next-gen hardware rollouts. On top of that, AMD's integration of its newly launched Ryzen AI processors into laptops and desktops could open up new revenue channels that bridge the consumer and enterprise AI markets. In other words, it's not just about the data center anymore. AMD is trying to bring AI processing to every layer of computing, from the cloud to the edge. From a macro standpoint, there's also the issue of data center capital expenditure. Large cloud providers like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google have all signaled that AI capex is expected to rise again in 2026 after a slight pause this year. That could play directly into AMD's hands. The company's chips tend to be priced lower than Nvidia's, which could make them more attractive to hyperscalers looking to diversify vendors or optimize costs as they build out their next wave of AI clusters. If AMD can secure even a modest slice of that capex cycle, the revenue implications could be significant. Technically speaking, the stock is also at an interesting juncture. After weeks of volatility, AMD appears to be reclaiming momentum. The move back above the $250 mark is psychologically important. If the stock can consolidate here and push through resistance near 260 to 265, it could open the door for a run toward the 280 range in the near term. Of course, that depends on broader market conditions and whether tech remains in favor as investors reposition heading into the final stretch of the year. As for risks, valuation remains the big one. At these levels, the market is already pricing in a lot of growth. That means AMD will need to continue executing almost flawlessly to justify its premium. Margins, yields, and product timelines will all be under a microscope. There's also the possibility of macro disruptions, anything from inflation data to changes in interest rate policy, that could weigh on high multiple names like AMD. Yet, for long-term investors, the bigger picture is compelling. AMD has spent years rebuilding itself from a struggling chipmaker into a legitimate industry powerhouse. Under Lisa Su's leadership, the company's portfolio has expanded, its execution has tightened, and its relevance has never been higher. Whether it's CPUs, GPUs, or AI accelerators, AMD is competing across the full spectrum of modern computing. And now, with the OpenAI deal, it's getting validation from one of the most influential companies in artificial intelligence. That kind of endorsement doesn't just boost credibility, it opens doors to other enterprise and government partnerships down the road. So when we look at today's 3% gain, it's easy to dismiss it as just another bounce in a volatile market. But in reality, it represents something deeper, a shift in tone. Investors aren't just reacting to a beat, they're starting to see AMD as a long-term beneficiary of the AI revolution, not just a follower in Nvidia's shadow. That's the real story here. As the market heads toward the close, the tone around AMD feels cautiously optimistic. Bulls are pointing to expanding data center share, improving guidance, and a fresh partnership that validates its AI credentials. Bears will argue the stock's expensive and the road to AI dominance is still long. But for now, momentum seems to be on AMD's side. Ultimately, the next few quarters will determine whether AMD can truly deliver on this AI ramp. If it continues to grow the data center business, maintain strong margins, and show visible adoption of its MI series chips, the stock has plenty of room to move higher. If those milestones fall short, it could drift back into consolidation territory. Either way, today marks a reaffirmation of AMD's relevance in the most exciting growth market of our time. In a world where every company wants to be part of the AI conversation, AMD is proving it deserves a seat at the table. The numbers back it up, the partnerships are forming, and the confidence is returning. Whether you're an investor or just following the broader semiconductor story, AMD is once again a name worth watching closely. So as we wrap up the session, the takeaway is clear. Strong earnings, improving sentiment, strategic partnerships, and a company that's stepping into the next chapter of its evolution. The real question now isn't whether AMD can deliver growth, it's whether it can accelerate fast enough to redefine the competitive landscape of AI hardware. For now, at least, the market seems to think it can.